Okay.
We're back, Mr. Travis, myself, two dads in real life, talking about stuff front of mind between us, stuff that we hear other dads, parents talk about, and so just giving our 2 cents. But today we're going to switch it. Usually Travis interviews me, and I appreciate it and I love him for it. But I want to know how he's doing in a specific area, and I think it's an area that a lot of parents, a lot of dads, come up to as far as a challenge in different chapters of their life. I know for me personally, it was um, nothing to newborn, right? First kid, that was a challenge on the topic of today. Each sequential kid, when work gets busy, when you take too long of a sabbatical, we're talking exercise. How do we get back into a routine that's supporting our season of life, that's supporting our wellness goals? Like, how do we do it all? Especially Travis is a seasoned veteran of exercise, and there's so many shiny things out there that we could be doing. We want bang for the buck, time wise, results wise. Like, how do you do it, Travis? How I know recently we started back up. So I guess to lead off is, did you have a hard start? Like, hey, July 28th, I'm going to start working out again. Or was it just a feel? Was it something you talked to your spouse about? Was it a lull in kind of the busyness of work? Like, why now? What made now the time to start? And now means last couple of weeks, obviously. But with any other dad out there, any other parent who's taken a long sabbatical, which we all have, how'd you do it? How'd you get back on the horse, sir?
I'm just still just the ringing in my ears from you just saying like seasoned veteran of exercise or something like that. I was, wow, that's humbling right there because yeah, I've exercised about as much as I don't. The words aren't coming. I'm. Oh, I wanted to say something that was really funny, but I don't think it's appropriate. Oh. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, rewind.
Rewind. Okay. So, yeah. What was it this time? That's a good question because I have started and stopped. I just want to preface by saying this. I've started and stopped exercising
Oh,
a
guilty. Yeah.
number of times. So we need to set the stage here properly,
Okay.
everybody. If you're like me, consistency is your not it's not your enemy, but consistency is really hard to catch. And then when you have kids, I have three small children, and so it's hard to stay consistent with things, especially as the seasons change literally and figuratively throughout the
Mhm,
year. Um, so does the rhythm and
mhm,
routine that you have set forth. And so just as you kind of have a rhythm, I'm like thinking of farming right now, but it's just
mhm.
like, sometimes you have the rhythm of rest or the rhythm of work or the rhythm of what have you. Those change with the season. So um, this time, um, this time I was actually already hungry to get back on the horse with exercise. I had actually been stewing on it for quite a while. So
Mm,
I would say there was a number of things that factors that have culminated into me getting back on the horse. It's been, yeah, just the thought of um, upcoming events that are exciting.
mhm.
So I've almost kind of utilized that. So I guess the first thing to talk about is I'm getting on. I'm doing this thing called an agony ride. It is the
The name
agony
alone.
ride.
The name alone.
It's yeah, and I mean I heard it in the past. Travis, the past cyclist Travis, couldn't handle it. Like I've been hearing about this ride for years, and finally I was like, this is it. This is the time. I want to get back on the exercise horse, but let's just go full force into this and ride our bike as much as possible for 24 hours. So it's a fundraiser for an organization, but it's a reason for me to get excited about something. And I think for myself and probably for a lot of guys out there and ladies, this really goes for everybody. This episode for sure, as do many of ours. But
Mhm.
talking to the dads out there who need something to get excited about to like drive
Yes.
you into some sort of routine. So I'm utilizing that to really train so I can then stick with it afterwards. But
Yeah.
other factors, real quick. I'm getting really fat. My belly is sticking out so much that when I put my shirt on, it hugs it, and I'm like, oh no, I got to get a bigger shirt because this is not good. That was driving me nuts. So it was like,
We've
okay,
all been there. We've all
we
been
have,
there.
and I feel like I have a line. I have a line. This is imaginary line where it was like, okay, like
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm buying this size T-shirt now, and I don't I'm not going past that.
Yeah.
That's never gonna happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to just get lazy and settle and then keep going,
Hmm. Hmm.
rolling down the hill. So, yeah, so that's where I'm at now. So the factors were, yeah, exciting things coming up. I've been thinking about it for quite a long time. I've been trying to set some rhythms in place here with Rob,
Hmm.
to stay consistent with just general things that are gonna, get me towards my goals and like just what I want to. Not really my goals, but just like my desire of who I want to be as a dad,
Yeah,
as a
it's
husband, and
supporting
so on.
your bigger
My
vision.
lifestyle.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lifestyle, right? And I
yeah,
love how you said it, and working with hundreds, literally, of dads over the years, and I'm not, I'm in the same boat too. Is what I noticed that's really helped out, and you mentioned right here is having a catalyst, right? So signing up for that 5K walk, doing that company steps challenge, right? Doing the agony ride, having a couple buddies put a challenge together. Sometimes, like as guys, like we need that contest, that competition, not in a competition like we're going to win gold, but like I need something outside of myself to motivate me to do this. And because it's like a steps challenge or a walk or a 5K or a ride, you start to do the other stuff a little bit better, right? You start to sleep better, eat better, start to move your body weight or external weights a little bit as far as lifting. So I love that. And then secondly is all of our dads, right? I'm talking to the dads right now. Like we all see ourselves in the mirror when we get up and our brush our teeth, right? We all see ourselves after the showers. And a lot of times I know for me, and I'll talk to me for me personally, like throughout the years, it's been like, well, it's okay. Like it's good enough, right? Like I'm married, I've got kids. It's good enough, but it's not what makes me happy, but it's good enough. And there's going to be a point in time where you're like, okay, good enough is not good enough anymore, right? And not only that, I don't want my kids to have that as a marker, right? That, oh, it's good enough, right? No, I want to see my kids see me have a goal, have a health and wellness goal, and work towards it every day, no matter how small the step is or how big the leap is, that I'm doing something to take care of my health. And for them to know that it's because of them, it's because I want to be a dad. I want to be around. I want to go to the park and chase you around and play. I don't want to go to the park, sit down and be on my iPhone, right?
yeah,
And so I
yeah.
know all this. And again, that's an example of an external catalyst, right? It's for my kids. And in the beginning, if you've been off the horse for a while, doing that first before it becomes intrinsic, like before I'm doing it for me, like I want to do it for my kids. I hate that feeling of me being too tired that I can't play with my kids. And so for me, that was my line, like you said, in the sand, where it's like, okay, my clothes feel like Spanx. I don't have any energy at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
And I start thinking of the good old days, right? CrossFit, going to the gym for 2 hours, and how amazing I felt in those environments, in that community, and how there's a part of me that kind of misses that. Knowing now that I could recreate that, but the catalyst has to be there, right? I need to start something. So awesome, dude. I know the shirt feeling. I know the agony ride. I know we're a handful of days out for that. So now that you're getting back on the horse, right? Like how did you approach it? And this is, if you watched any of our other episodes, I definitely go back and I might tag this in YouTube to episode that has to do this. How do you find the time? Right? You said, right? You got a side hustle going that's growing. You got three littles, and we're talking like all hands on deck littles, not like, okay, do your homework tonight, right? So how do you find
Hmm.
time? How did you find time? How did you create consistency in your time? And then the big spoiler, what is that time? Like when are you doing all this?
Ooh, fantastic questions. So quite a while back, I had this story starts a long, long time ago.
I think this is
Um,
when we do like the cutout from like J.R. Tolkien or Jurassic Park, right? Like
Yes.
long time ago.
Uh-huh. In a galaxy far, far away.
Exactly.
Um,
We'll just put your and my face all over the Wookiee,
yeah.
and I do that. All right.
I really hope we
Fine.
have the editing
Dude,
capabilities
if
to do
I will
that
figure
sometime.
out how to edit that, that would be
Just
so
put that
great,
in
right?
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a long time ago, the I was two of the jobs that I've had in the last decade have had a lot of autonomy, or I mean, a lot of independence.
Mhm.
Like I've been able to do what I need to get done on my own clock, and thankfully there was a bit of grace there involved in all of the work that I did. Nobody was, there wasn't a lot of high stress like factors in that said
Micromanaging.
nobody was going to die if I didn't do the X, Y, or Z. So
Yeah.
um, I I
He was
was
a
I was
surgeon,
lazy.
ladies and gentlemen. He was a surgeon. That's why.
Yeah.
Just kidding. But
So
yeah, you were
I
saying,
walk
so
into the OR a few hours late.
it's fine.
No, I let's see, where was I going with this? Oh, yes. So lots of availability to do my work as I pleased. And so what did I do with that? I squandered that time a lot. I was the guy that was like, I'm just gonna play this cool game on my computer for a sec. Like I was like, and then like 2 hours later, I was like, oh yeah, I gotta work
I got
because
work
I'm
to
a
do.
professional. So okay. Um, so sorry, old boss, if you know who I'm talking about. So I just had this moment where I was like, okay, I gotta get this together a little bit. And fast forward just a little bit farther along. This was like 2018 or something. Um, my boss at that time was like, "Hey, this book is really going to help you out. Like, I think this is what you could utilize." And so took a bunch of stuff from that and as I always joke, it's like that was the Travis 2.0 year for me. And
Hmm.
I kind of got serious, and it worked out great because it was 2019, because it was right before my son was born. And so I
Hmm.
was like, I was primed. Like I was so pumped to be able to say like I'm totally ready for this first kid. Like
Hmm.
I put in the work, and
That prep.
I'm in a good spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so part of that book talked about time blocking, and
Mhm.
like just like along with that, it was I got this like little crash course, I feel like, that I needed to hear as being somebody who procrastinates and is lazy, from my boss who cared about me, who he was
Mhm.
like, hey, you're sticking around. This hit, and this always stuck with me in a good way. He's like, you got the work done, yes, but you could have been home at 5 and been with your family, but now you're here at 6:45 finishing up, so
Mm,
like,
mm.
yes, you have that freedom to do what you need to do when you need to do it, but you're squandering that time that you
So
probably are going to
true.
want. So it was great. And so carrying that over into the last few years, and then actually meeting up with you, right? You were like, hey, so have I don't know if you've done this before, but we're gonna schedule out your day. And I'm like, I've done that before. I know how this works, but I wasn't really doing it at the time. Like,
Yeah.
because I had now, since for the last 2.5 years, I've been full-time dad.
Hmm.
And so I hadn't really blocked it out, because I mean, when you have babies, like every 2 weeks, every 2 months, everything's changing again, right?
Hmm.
But in the moment, where are we at? So we talked about that, and here we are. I go, okay, I'm looking at this, and consistently, as I wrote out my schedule from
Hmm.
wake to sleep, it becomes very apparent, and I think it will for anybody who's listening if they time block everything out. You've done this with many people, so you can attest to this, and
Hmm.
please add anything that you want to add to this. But we go, there are only two spaces, and that for me, it's during nap time,
Hmm.
or it's when you wake up. It's you wake up earlier, you know
Hmm.
and so for me in this season, I was like, okay, I gotta wake up early, so that's what I'm gonna do. And so um that was where I got to with what I, based off the time, how I'm going to
Mhm.
make the time. Um, I don't know. As lazy as I am, I think that it's funny how many people refuse to wake up early. Like I get it. It's hard, and like I'm not voluntarily always choosing to wake up, but it
Mhm.
was like hey, that's what parenting is, right? You have kids, and then you're
You
forced
chose the
into,
hard. Yeah,
hey,
you
I
chose
gotta
the
I
hard.
gotta this is my choice.
Yeah.
So here we go. So anyways, it feels good to get up early in the morning. I want to, as much as
Mm.
my body does not desire that
Yes.
as much as I want
Yeah.
it to.
And it's true. Like you said, working with a bunch of people over the years, it's kind of that harsh reality. And this is specifically for parents. Like when you become a parent, or if you still have parents of a young adolescents or like toddlers age, and you still want to kind of take care of your health, you realize that, and I kind of use this with clients and with you, like that triage effect. If I can set a long time in the morning before anybody wakes up, and I get the stuff that takes care of me, fills my tanks, be it exercise, reading, and we can go through that later. But today we're talking about exercise, is then I can check that box. But hypothetically, if it doesn't happen, let's say I wake up 5:30 to work out and baby wakes up, like toddler wakes up, that she's wide awake. I'm like, okay, but I have my backup, right? Then I have nap time, or I have when my spouse comes home and I can get away for 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But I don't want to rely on those later times as the first option, because it's
Yeah.
very rare that those later times are consistent, even weekly, right? Like you can't tell if they're going to take a nap at the same time each day or when they wake up. And you don't want to be that dad, like running laps around your neighborhood with the baby monitor because you don't want to get your exercise in, but you got to watch your baby. So the honest truth is, during that season, that chapter where you have littles at home, you need to wake up. And the reasons, in my opinion, the reason why it's so hard is because, one, we all have control of what time we go to bed, right? But
Hey.
ever since the invention of electricity and the light bulb and Netflix and releasing series all at once, it's really easy to be like, you know what? I took care of my kids, my spouse today. It's my turn. I'm going to fill that tank what feels good, which is like snacking and TV. And next thing you know, it's midnight, and you're like, oh, but I told Rob, or I told my friend I was going to wake up at 5:30 to go for a jog, right? So taking responsibility for your health and wellness also means taking responsibility of your schedule. And I'm not saying snacking and TV is a bad thing. No, but start that earlier or save it for Friday nights when you know you're not going to work out the next morning, right? So, like I said, it's a harsh truth, but in the morning is when it needs to get done in the beginning. And then, secondly, go to bed earlier. You just need, I'm sure, like I've talked to Travis, our spouses be like, dude, we could have gone to bed an hour earlier. You wanted to stay up to watch this,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so, and you work backwards slowly. Maybe it's half an hour in the beginning. Then eventually after a week, it becomes a full hour to bed early. And then after that, you're going to bed 30 minutes after your kids get put down, right? But then what happens is you wake up fully rejuvenated and you have 3 hours, 2 hours to do whatever you want. Watch Netflix, then go cook breakfast, go work for a workout. And I think once you make that switch, like any kind of major switch in your life, you're like, wow, I do have time. I do have influence of my day, and I can get my health back. I can start to ride and work out. It's just we don't like change, but change is the one thing that's a constant, right? It's the one thing that's constant. So the more you get in front of it, the easier it is to be consistent. So I applaud you for making that switch to the AMs, blocking your time out, and we just talked off air about doing it 5 days a week, and knowing that you have so many wins on all lifestyle fronts, not just exercise, that by the weekend comes around, like you're good. Like anything that happens on the weekends, like a bonus, right?
Yeah. Yep. And so I don't know, you might be thinking of this question. I don't want to like skip ahead, but
Go for it.
the the how do we want to put this? The enemy of your present is your past in regards to
Yeah.
exercise. I feel like potentially for a lot of
Mm.
people,
Yeah.
like the thing that I am trying to shut down as much as possible is the fact that, like, okay, when I was 20, I was a
Yep.
cyclist. I
Yep.
worked at a bike shop. Like I rode like a nice. I was riding every week, and like a nice ride for me was like 50 miles,
Yeah.
like, oh, that was great. Okay,
Yeah.
good weekend ride. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah.
you know, I'm looking at this thing, and it's really hard, even though that was so long ago. It's really hard to shut out that expectation, that voice inside your head that's like,
Mhm.
this is what we expect. Like, you should we should on ourselves a lot. We shouldn't
Yeah.
do that so much,
Yeah.
like the I rode, trying to think. I think I rode this morning on my hybrid bike without clip pedals and all these things, right? Like, even in that, just like getting on the bike
Yeah.
and
Yep.
riding, I was like, I'm wearing shorts and a t-shirt, not a a full kit. I'm
Yeah.
riding on a hybrid bike, not like
No
a
clip
road
on.
bike. I
Mhm.
have a helmet with a fin on the front of it. Like I was, like all those things. If I just sink into that, I'd be like, what's wrong with me? Like, what this is like, what a fool,
Yeah.
but like, this is what I have, and it's doing the same thing in my body at
Yep.
this time.
Yep.
And like, I get the opportunity to grow again in those
Yes.
things. But if I expect that it's going to look or feel like it did in the past, I think I'm only hurting myself,
Yes.
um in
Yeah.
progressing
Like
forward.
you said, the key word is the expectations, right? The expectations we put on ourselves, and it's a zero win game when we play the comparison game. Like we've heard, keeping up with the Joneses. When you look at friends or other people who are successful in wellness and health, and you're like, man, like they're doing it. Why am I doing it? Well, your storyline's not their storyline, right? Your season's not their season. And then what happens is, well, I can compare it to my old season. Then, like, why am I not doing it then? And those are all ways to kind of self sabotage. So just to be aware that you're doing that is the first step. And then secondly, to realize that my goals now are not when I first worked at a bike shop and I was cycling. Like there's not the same goals. So the process is not going to be the same, right? The workouts are not going to be the same. And when it comes to workouts and like wellness and stuff like that, I get this all the time. Like, what's the perfect workout? What's the perfect nutrition? You would be frightened to realize that it's not all the fancy stuff, right? Simplicity is what's going to get you there. Just push-ups and some body weight squats and some crunches and play, like that's more than enough. But we feel like we need all the bells and whistles because we see all the bells and whistles, and the bells and whistles must be the reason why Jack looks jacked, right? And the truth is, Jack looks jacked because he's probably on something that helps him look jacked, or he's been doing this for 30 years consistently, right? So as a dad, for me, getting back on the horse, I had to really take a look at, okay, I need to renegotiate with myself. What's my goal in the season? Is my goal to be a competitive cyclist or CrossFitter or weightlifter or XYZ? It's like, no, I want to have enough energy at the end of the day to play with my kids. Like, I don't want to be falling asleep on the couch when I get home from work. I want to be excited about the weekend and not fear the weekend because my kids are at home all day, right? Kind of a thing. And so,
Yeah.
with that being the new goal, okay, then what is the wellness protocol or training? Like, it doesn't need to be 5 days a week. It doesn't need to be hardcore AMRAPs, right? It could literally just be, you know what? I'm going to walk every day. And that's already 1,000 times more than what I'm currently doing. And I feel great. Great. Now, what do I want to do that's more than that? And you take those baby steps. I can't tell you how many times I've self sabotaged myself because I've started a new routine, but it's like, doesn't feel like the old routine though, right? I remember like when I started like deadlifting in the garage months ago. I'm like, man, this used to be my snatch weight. Like this is so defeating, right?
You're
But then
like,
I also
ah, dang.
realized, right? But I'm comparing it to another chapter where no, I used to compete in weightlifting. Like that's why I trained like that. Whereas now I don't need to do any of that stuff, right? I need to make sure
Yeah.
my back's safe, I'm mobile, my hips are supple, and I can touch my toes, right? And I feel like I'm getting enough sleep. Okay, that's the season. Then guess what? 15 to 20 minutes of some push-ups and sit-ups, more than enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you gotta, it's like we've been talking about plenty of other episodes. You gotta have loose hands.
Yes.
You can't,
Learning to treat yourself.
if you just get so rigid and it has to be this way, this way, this way, you're gonna end up losing that
So
battle.
on that, and I'll play kind of the opposite on that for a second. So I have had clients in the past that are very much that personality type, right? Where they're like, they live in their past and everything is a
Uh-huh.
comparison to that. So one of two things, either I have to fire the client, and the reason being is we start to get in the realms of injury as we get older, and the bounce back rate is not the same, right? And so being healthy and safe is more of a priority. And if you live in your college years mentally, it's very hard to do. Or secondly, you need to pay for someone to coach you, like literally to be there physically, making sure you're safe and are willing to put in what is required, as in like planning, macro, micro, food, all of that, because your personality type needs that support. And that doesn't fit for everyone, right? That
Yeah.
financially schedule wise, it won't fit for everyone. So in my opinion, the easier route was just to be like, okay, just look at the season of life. Like I'm not that college athlete anymore, and I'm okay with that. And that's a hard pill to swallow for I think a lot of dads. I for me it was, but then it opens up a lot of opportunities, right? Because now I can do a bunch of other stuff that I've always like. Let me try pickleball or tennis, right? Because I don't need to be that
Yes.
super competitive guy anymore. So
Pickleball is the jam now.
yeah. Yes.
Pick
Oh my goodness.
and hey, just a side note, I don't want you to lose your train of thought, so just pin
No, that
that.
that was it. Just say that if you are that archetype, that personality type, you're going to need support. You're going to need help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why I have you. That's
Yeah.
why I have you. But what I was gonna say, side note, and
Yeah.
this is I like this about podcasts. This is why I'm inputting
We
this
can talk
because
whatever we
this is what makes podcasts fun. Is in Texas and I guess other places maybe
Mhm.
around there, they have this place called Chicken Pickle, and not many people have heard about this, but it is it's like a bougie like chicken sandwich shop
With
like
pickleball.
with pickleball courts.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like the vibes are up. It,
Oh
it
yeah.
looks it's nice, but like the food is apparently really good. And like and it's like lit at night, so
Oh my
you can
goodness.
go
I'm
anytime.
taking a trip to Austin or something.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
need to do more research about chicken ball.
I've only seen pictures of it.
That's such a
They should
great
call it
idea
chicken
to create more of
ball.
a social atmosphere of a sport that most
Yep.
people can do, right? So
Well, that's what pickleball is all about, is that social. I think that's why I like it so much too. It's like
yeah,
it was like CrossFit was back in the day when we were together. It's
yeah.
like,
And
woo, we're all together. We're
we're
all
all
doing
doing
this
this together.
thing. Yeah, and I
Exactly.
guess you know what that pulls people together. I assume that would pull people together more that are like our age, because you don't
Yeah.
get that as much, right? In college, it was just like everybody's in college, so there we go. But when you have
Yeah.
your own
Everyone
family
was
and you have all
playing
these
club
things,
sports or doing something. Yeah.
yep, yep, yep. But now I digress. That's all I wanted to say about that. You said pickleball, and I just had to run with it. But
No, that's good. So now we know you're working out. We know it's the morning time. We know
yeah,
you have a catalyst, right? Like a race coming up.
yeah,
And so I guess like my final question kind of to follow this up, and I think it's the hard question that a lot of people have to realize is what happens after the ride, right? Do you keep to your schedule? Do you sign up for another ride? Like how do you see yourself as far as like the obstacle that may show up? And then what are your plans to overcome that obstacle of like the race has come and gone? Like what do I do now? So what's your approach? What are you doing?
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I think accountability is probably one of the first things. That just like
Mm,
kind of at keeping in contact with someone, like that knows what my goals are. Like
mhm,
that's something that I think is doable, and it doesn't necessarily cost money. Like
mhm.
just in the sense of, like getting your friends involved,
Yeah.
or family,
Mhm.
something. Like maybe your spouse wants to do that with you.
Yeah.
Like, or maybe not with you, but at the same time, like, hey, we're
Mhm.
doing this together. For myself, um, like I had already started with the goal of like I want to exercise in the mornings, like not necessarily for the ride. And so what my plan is to stick with that and go, okay, once the ride is done, like I don't have all the stuff right now, and I guess
Mhm.
it's not a bad thing. This ride is gonna remind me. It's either gonna be like I want to be a cyclist again and
Yeah,
I can
it's
do
either
this,
gonna do that or not.
or it's gonna be like that was great, and I'm borrowing a friend's bike right now. Like I'll
Mhm.
just give the bike back, and then it's like, all right, well, I'll back to the body weight stuff, right? So yeah, I have it planned in my head that I'm back to where, like, back to the same consistency. Like,
Mm,
I know what I'm doing. So at least I can picture that. There's no like we'll see, quote unquote, with
love it.
like after the ride is done. So I think that's important because I mean, for me, if it's a we'll see, then it's not going to happen, you know?
Yeah, and I think you
Um,
touched on it. Like if you're only now there's no wrong, right? Like if you know for yourself and not like you, but like for people who are listening, and I've had clients in the past like this, like, hey Rob, the only way I'm going to stay in shape is if I sign up for a 10K every 2 months. Then great, sign up for a 10K every 2 months, right? Whatever you need. But
yeah,
the nice thing that what's happened with you is prior to this ride, you've already created a daily routine that supports the exercise. And so you're not looking for time or looking for motivating factors. It's literally like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's like slotted in there that you'll be doing this. And the great thing about that is you won't need motivation or something exterior to you to do that. In the beginning, if you don't have a schedule down, if you don't have a routine down, then signing up for something will kind of lead you down the rabbit hole of what everything you just talked about today. But the fact that you've already done that, it's great because then you're not like, oh, I need to sign up for another century ride, or I need to get back on the bike. Like it has to be, it's like an if then statement, right? Like if I sign up, then I'll work out 3 days a week. Whereas you're just like, no, like I'm already up. I know it's Travis's time, it's dad time. And I feel better when I exercise mentally, physically. I sleep better. I'm a better dad for my spouse and my kids. And it doesn't take much, right? We're not talking 2.5 hour sessions at 24-hour fitness or something like that. And
yeah.
so, like, I applaud you for that. It's good to hear that you already have that routine there. So, to kind of finish up today's talk, what are like some takeaways? I'd say probably three tips maximum for dad who's listening to this who has said the game. Like, man, I should really start exercising again. Or, like I don't like the way I feel right now, but I'm yo-yoing. Like I tried the heated yoga, that didn't work out. I tried going back to a group class, wasn't the same. I bought a skateboard, don't want to break my knees. So like, what's 2 or 3 tips you could give a dad who's or a mom who's listening, who's like, okay, I'm not gonna wait for the time to be right anymore. But what are some tips that you can give them to be like, okay, this is how you get started. This is how you get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think I love that question. The thing that I was even going to mention that ties right into this question is the fact that I want to note that I I had before even getting to the working out stage,
Hmm.
I I guess the point that I would make is like set yourself up with some sort of foundation, like some sort of base that doesn't even necessarily have any specific to it. This will make sense in a sec. Is that like, so what I was doing was I was just getting up early because I knew that I needed that time and that space for
Mm,
something. And if especially if you're a dad with young kids and the seasons change and the rhythms change constantly, um, like that was something I knew would stay, that could be consistent, just in the
yeah.
sense of like I know I can wake up at this time and
Yeah.
I know that will give me an hour. But then from there, like I was using that for reading, or I was
Mhm.
using that to like go do a study, or like hang out with some guys for like coffee, or go and do the Bible study, or
Mhm.
go and do the exercise. Like those options are all available to me. I didn't even
Mhm.
realize that, but through you and I talking, like that that I think was the key to that success of like, okay, it's number one, like it's there. Now it's there. So give yourself grace. So pick a base, give
Mhm.
yourself grace. And I got nothing else to rhyme with that
With grace.
unless it comes to me. But I'm a perfectionist. If there are any other perfectionists out there, I always just
We
thought like
all
I
we
gotta
all
have
are.
all the
Yep.
gear. I gotta have all the things. Like I want it to be perfect. But just make the first step. I know everybody says that and that sounds cliche. That's something that I feel like I tried and failed at many a
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
Was like, yeah, sure, if you tried the skateboarding and it didn't work, if you tried the other thing and it didn't work, like you'll eventually find something that does work, and maybe it's
Hmm.
just first like setting aside whatever time that is for when you want to experiment, but don't be afraid to experiment. I never was good at that growing up, and that's taken a lot of like practice
Yeah.
of just experimenting, right? So I didn't know how I was going to get the money for this, like for this fundraiser. I still haven't figured that out. So I still don't. I have a minimum amount that I need to raise. I didn't have a bike. I had pieces of a bike, but I got a bike. Somebody lent me one. But I also have a bike that actually does work. So wait, hold on. I do have a bike. Okay, so I'm gonna go ride it in my clothes because I don't have like all the gear. That's
Hmm.
fine. I'm pedaling. So
Yeah.
just start swimming, as Dory says from Finding
Love it.
Nemo. No, just keep swimming. Just do it. Just
Mhm.
you know, I think those are the key takeaways. Is like create the space.
Mhm.
So we talked about the scheduling. Find that
Schedule.
that schedule,
Yep.
and then I feel like the next thing is, um, you
Like
know,
you mentioned,
ex-
grace, right? Like
yeah,
knowing that it doesn't need to be every single day when you start, right? That's a hard measuring stick.
yep,
Instead, put the timeline out months, if not the end of the year. How consistent are you at that point in time, right? So give yourself grace. And then I love what you said. The last thing is keep it simple in the beginning, right? I got a bike, I'm pedaling. Great. I'm a cyclist, right? Like
yep.
that's not comparing to the past, not comparing to the, you know what, Rob, I did 10 push-ups at lunch, I did 20 at night. Awesome. You did 30 push-ups today. When's the last time you did 30 push-ups? So I think having the bar lower and not having overly exaggerated expectations is kind of the key for consistency over time, right? So it's one of the things that I've worked with you and other people in the past is that you need to earn your difficulty, right? Like I do
Mm,
want to sign up for that century. Show me that you can be consistent for 10 minutes on a stationary bike 5 days a week. Like what's the simplest form of that? You need to earn something harder, right? Well, I want to go back to lifting barbells and going to the gym and doing lap pull downs. How about we do some push-ups at home first, right? Like earn that consistency, because if you, like you mentioned, by earning the difficulty, you are in essence creating the schedule in your body. You're creating the need for something harder versus
mm-hmm.
going out of the gates too hot and be like, nope, didn't work again. Nope, didn't work again. This is just not for me. Right. So I love the three tips, right? Schedule, schedule, schedule. And the mornings will always be the mornings, right? Very few times the kids will interrupt that morning time, but the rest of the day, game is on. Anything can interrupt that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Secondly, having grace with yourself, and then asking for support, loved ones, spouse, kids, like, hey guys, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing in the morning, and I'm not going to do it every day. I'm going to try my best, but I'd love some help, right? Just reminders. And my kids used to like draw little cards, like you can do it. Good mornings, leave them on my desk, stuff like that. So that was really
Oh,
motivating for
that's
me
awesome.
because I shared that with others, right?
Yeah,
And
you
then
have older kids too. That's cool to
yeah,
see. Like they get to see, yeah, like
now
they're
my older
seeing
kids,
you
they
do that.
ask to work out with me, which is awesome, right?
Yes.
They like to work out with me. And then lastly, like you said, it's like, hey, how can I make this simple? So simple as I'm just going to tie my shoes every day. I'm going to get out of bed, I'm going to put shoes on and tie them. I might go for a walk, might go for the run, I might cook breakfast in my shoes, but at least I'll tie my shoes, right? So what's the lowest hanging fruit, or the simplest form of it? So great tips today, Travis. Thanks for the time. I appreciate you as always. I'm looking forward to seeing kind of this journey, back on the horse, back on the bike, um, and seeing how that goes with you.
Oh
Can't wait
yeah.
to hear updates on the agony ride as well. But to close, as always, we're just two dads, right? We're not experts.
We're not professionals. We are
No, we're
just
just two dads
dads in
in real
real
life.
life.
We'll get that one day. We will.
What we should have
Okay.
talked about. We
What?
should have set. We gotta set. We're just gonna
No,
set
we're
a
still on.
rhythm. We have to set like a little duh, 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 like
You
so.
see, if we had like an
Dads
outro
in
music, we could say
real
it
life.
with the outro music.
Yes, I'm gonna bring in
Yeah.
my extra phone that I have and just play like we'll have like
Just
a
a
tune or like a
song.
thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Just make
All
sure it's not
right.
copyrighted. That's all.
Yep, yep.
Okay. Sure.
Key.
Okay.